Welcome. Welcome, everyone, to the Radio Toons podcast. How's it going?
It's going great, man.
I'm Steve.
I'm Ernie.
So, tragedy has struck this week.
Yeah.
If you all haven't heard the news, I'm sure you have.
It's everywhere.
And it's Stanley has passed away.
Right. 95.
Yeah. Stanley was one of those people where, like, I just kept telling myself, he's never going to die.
Yeah.
He's going to be around forever. And then it's like, all of a sudden, just like that, he's gone. It's kind of like Hugh Hefner. I don't know why. I thought, like, Hugh Hefner will never die. He just, and all of a sudden, whatever, he's gone. And
I think for years and years and years to come, people will be, like, still parroting him in cartoons, in movies. Stanley.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Like, apparently he has, like, he has some cameos that are still, like...
Yeah, he has it. He filmed... Like, I remember at my work, somebody told me, okay, so Stanley has done his cameo in Avengers Infinity War Part 2.
Yeah, and, like, some other ones, like, apparently he was in Venom, and I forgot.
Yeah, I saw him in Venom. It was a very small cameo.
Yeah.
He was in Venom.
I want to say he was just, like, on something, like, as a picture.
Something like that.
Or was he in the act? Well, whatever. Anyway. He might, yeah. But it sucks. Like, I'm not someone who, I guess, like, cares about celebrity deaths too often, but right. Stanley's just, like, one of those wholesome dudes that, like, it's like, why? Like, why did he have to die? He was such a nice guy, and especially, like, the way that everyone seems to be familiar with him now because of, like, his cameos and stuff. He's the face of Marvel, like, he's basically the guy that created, like, most of their headlining characters, He's an iconic man in a lot of ways. He was in Teen Titans Go. Did you know that?
Oh, I didn't know that.
The movie.
I haven't watched it yet, and I've been really trying to get around to seeing that.
Yeah, he's in the movie, and they're just, like... he says something like, wait a minute, this is a DC film? Oh, no.
I'm in the wrong place.
Yeah, one of those kind of gags. But it was still pretty funny because he's just like, I'm here for my subtle cameo, and then like all these arrows point at him, and they see like Stan Lee or something.
Yeah,
it's pretty funny. So as you can see, he is a very charismatic man. He transcends universes.
Yeah,
nothing can stop him.
You want something weird? Is the place where I'm working now? They had a moratorium ready to go. Like, they had, like, a clip of all his work and a bunch of interviews of his ready to go in case he died.
Oh, okay. Well, you have more on that? Or
Yeah. So, like, what's really funny is throughout the decades, Stan Lee's been around for so long, but they showed, like, some really early pictures of him. Uh-huh. Like barely color ones, you know what I mean? Like, really early ones. He still had that look.
Yeah.
The glasses with the subtle tint. The like white hair on the side, the black all the way back. Like, that's been his look. Yeah. It's almost like a trademark look for the last 95 years, I guess. Something like
because in there was this picture that I kept seeing. It was from him in '78. And he had like the little porn star mustache, and he had like the shades. And I think honestly, he was just like, "This is my look."
Forever.
Like in the '70s, he was just like, "I like this, and I'm sticking with this look, and no one's gonna tell me."
They ran pictures of him like from the most current Spider-Man, like his cameo in Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Looking out the window.
All the way, yeah, all the way back to like this promotional picture he did where he's like staring at Spider-Man. It's in black and white, but he's like staring at a cosplaying Spider-Man from like way back in the day.
I remember that, and he doesn't have the shades.
No,
it's just like he just looks like a normal man.
But what was cool, like one of the great things about Stan Lee wasn't just that he was always like around when Marvel stuff was happening. He used to be like a fixture at things like comic book conventions. Like, he was always at Comic-Con.
Yeah,
like, if you wanted to see Stan Lee, there was like a very good chance that you could see Stan Lee if you went to Comic-Con, waited in line. Like, before the whole ticket system started, like, you could go there and be like, hey, look, it's Stan Lee.
Yeah.
He'd be there and he'd be so excited to see everybody.
Real quick before you keep going, you reminded me because you said that you have that video ready to go.
Yeah.
And when Stan Lee was a teenager, apparently he used to write obituaries for people who were not dead yet.
Oh, he's serious?
So So in the exact same sentiment, they would prepare these obituaries before people would die.
Yeah.
And because he was saying, like, the newspaper would have like a whole 3-page article, and you'd wonder, like, oh, how do they do this in one?
So fast, right?
Yeah, and it's like they're pre-made.
For certain people who are getting up there or they think might die soon, they'll do like an obituary is kind of like the biggest accomplishments and the best things about a person, and then you just kind of update it as you go.
No, yeah, I completely understand that. But like I wonder if they had one for Carrie Fisher, because her death to me seemed pretty sudden. I don't know about you, but like that one seemed.
No, there's a lot of times where people scramble because like they'll just somebody will die tragically, so they didn't think they were gonna go, but some people they're a little older. We should probably start making an obituary for them. And to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if they had one for younger stars.
Yeah,
who also are just live dangerously.
He said that he had done that. Sorry, Stanley was talking about his work in obituaries on Conan.
Right.
And he was telling Conan, like, there's probably a chance that yours is already written. And this is when, like, Conan was, like, new. Like, he still looked, like, super young. You could still, like, younger Conan episodes, you could still hear, like, the New York ancestor. His... And they're like, yeah, chances are. Just because you're a celebrity and you're a little bit up there, like, they might have an obituary.
Conan was only, like, in his 40s, and then you're up there.
Yeah. That's what's crazy, too, is, like, okay, real fast, sorry.
Okay.
In that clip... Stanley like still looks like old, like, and that's one of the reasons why I thought like this guy's never gonna die. Like I think it was 95.
It's just because he's always had that look.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like,
I suppose so. Yeah, like
I was talking to some people today, and they were just like, we're all kind of mentioning things that we loved about Stanley, and one of them was like he's always had that signature look, and I started naming other people like Steve Martin's always looked that old.
Oh yeah. My entire life, like he's Steve Martin's just been old.
Not Liam Neeson, Leslie Nielsen.
Okay.
The guy from the Naked Gun. He always looked old, even back when he was young, that kind of thing. Like there's some people who just always had that look to you. Like you said, Hugh Hefner. He always had the gray, always had the pipe, and always had that that smoking jacket. That was his look, and even when he was older, you're just like, yeah, he looks like that. That's how he looks.
No, yeah, definitely. It's funny though how you were saying like he's kind of like a celebrity that's like easy to meet. Like if you wanted to see Stan Lee, at one point in time it was like extremely doable.
Oh yeah, if you went to any Comic-Con, like Comic-Con's the big one, right? But if you went to any kind of mid to high end comic book convention, there used to be a Long Beach Comic-Con. You could go down there, and it was just like all comic books.
Well, not to mention Kamikaze.
Yeah, Kamikaze. That's his creation.
That was his thing. Yeah, that they had to rebrand as Stan Lee's Comic-Con so people would actually go.
Well, here's the thing. Like Comic-Con has gotten too crazy. Like it was insane to get in there. So he was trying to create a place where people could go and discover comic books that was like family friendly.
Yeah,
that was the big thing. He didn't want any kind of like. There are some like. Buy-ins and everything, but for the most part, Kamikaze is about fandom and like meeting actors who are kind of more approachable.
I'm sure there's like some rules about like, hey, and there's like can't have a hentai booth here or like because
he wants again, it's a family-friendly event.
Yeah, and I think there was one year where they were doing it during Halloween.
Yeah,
and they were like. Bring your kids in costumes and all that shit. Like you could trick or treat here, and some people will have candy. I was like, oh, it's insane. Like, that's cool.
Like that's the kind of person that Stanley was. Always up for like making kids, adults, everybody come together. Even through comic books and everything.
There was a clip from G4's. I forget what it was called, but it was like their like little game awards thing, and he was presenting the award for Hideo Kojima.
Oh, I think it was G4.
Okay, yeah. Hideo Kojima won some award or whatever. He dressed up as Revolver Ocelot and it was just like reading the lines.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
That's funny.
And I was just like, this dude is just so fucking happy to be alive. Like, it's insane to me. Like, just the amount of energy and the amount of like positivity this guy like exerts into any room that he's in. Do you remember that one time we actually saw him at Frankincense?
That was crazy.
Yeah, he was just like walking by because he was there as a guest.
Yeah.
But this particular I guess.
See, that's what I'm talking about. It was like, if you for those of you who know, we mentioned before, Frankincense is a flea market for stuff like any kind of nerd stuff.
Yeah.
They once a year they do a big thing where they invite stars here. They had a Stan Lee. I think they had twice in a row. They had Stan Lee show up.
Yeah, and he there's not really like. Since it's just like a flea market, you have to just bring him in from the front. So so he basically crossed in front of all these people, and like we were like we were like somewhere near the bathrooms, and he just passed by, and you like.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so Steven had gone into the bathroom, and I was just waiting by the door. And so, like, the Frankenstein's front offices, it's set up like a warehouse. So there's like a front office cube, and then in the very back, that's where like they had set up this big stadium, or not a stadium, but like a meet and greet area. So they basically had to walk in from the front to the back.
Yeah, exactly.
And right next to the office is the bathrooms. So that's why when he came out, I turned around and you're like, "Oh, look, it's Stan Lee." I was like, "What?"
Yeah, he
was like behind us.
He's like the most normal looking man ever. Yeah. He was just like wearing like a fucking t-shirt and jeans, like almost unaware of his famous presence there.
And he was like super happy to be there.
Yeah,
that was a crazy thing. Like he's I don't know how many comic book conventions this guy's done. Millions probably. And still comes to these things being like, "Hey, what's up, everybody?" And like, "Hey, thanks for reading comics, for buying comics, all that stuff."
Yeah, a little fun fact about Stan Lee. I didn't know his name was not Stan Lee.
It's not Stan Lee?
No, apparently it's sorry if I get this wrong, but it's Stanley Martin Lieber. And apparently he was like kind of embarrassed to work in comic books when he first started, because he said a lot of his friends were doing other stuff like being architects and shit like that. And and he found like he almost found it like, how am I supposed to make a difference in the world writing comic books when these guys are out there, like, in life,
crazy.
In life, you're always compared to other people, and
that's crazy to think now with everything with all the stuff that he's created. It's crazy to think that he thought that.
Yeah, in retrospect, it's an insane thought. But I guess the first time he did something, he wrote Stan Lee on it because he was like, "Oh, I don't want people to know."
Oh, so that's his pen name.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And it later became like his legal name because he's obviously like, "Yeah, that's me. I'm owning it. I own this shit now." Like, yeah, that's me, dude. So yeah, that's kind of an interesting, little perspective on it. I would have never thought Stan Lee would ever be ashamed of anything he's done. Cause
you think it was supposed to be like a play on words? Like it's actually
Stanley.
Yeah, it's like Stanley.
Yeah,
as opposed to Stan.
Probably.
Space Lee. Yeah, because like I listened to a radio show and the guy's name is Greg Gorey. But obviously that's just a stupid
like
Gregory.
Okay.
Because he doesn't want people to know his last name. It's like, okay, get it. So it's fun.
That is funny. Yeah. All right. I see that. Yeah, I was going through like his Wikipedia page, trying to brush up on like fun facts and all that stuff. And he was fucking 1922, I believe, was when he was born.
Jesus
1920.
No, yeah, a lot of people were putting 1922 and then to 2018, and a lot of people were just retweeting this black square with those dates, and then it just says Excelsior underneath it.
Yeah,
I was like, I have never. It's crazy to think that one person owns that word now, essentially, because nobody else says that.
It's apparently from, I think it was New York State or something. It's their slogan.
Okay.
So he says it because of that. And it's like now people know, they associate it with him.
Anytime you said Excelsior, it's like, that's Stan Lee.
Yeah, you know what? One of my first, I always knew who Stan Lee was because we had not comics, but we had one of those books that had the story of Marvel Comics in it, and it had all these cool pictures in it.
Well, at least up until the last 5 years, I believe. Yeah.
It was just a whole. It was one of those fucking. What are those called? Amazing cross sections. Oh, look at all the Marvel stuff.
Yeah, it was mostly just an informational book about comics from the beginning to end.
Yeah, so I always knew who Stan Lee was. The first kind of glimpse into his character, or the first time I heard his voice, was PS1 Spider-Man. Was when he did the narrations for the PS1 Spider-Man game.
Oh my gosh.
Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Because I remember you telling me, oh, that's Stan Lee, that's the creator. And I was just like, what? He sounds so, weird. I can't believe, he sounds kind of like a kid. You think, I don't know. When I was a child, I was just like, okay, he created Marvel. He must be, a business guy or something.
Yeah.
But he's in there going Excelsior, and he's saying hey, true believers, it's we're here playing Spider-Man and all this stuff, and I was just like, what? This is him? It's insane. It was just a little peek into his life, I guess.
And he's always had that amount of energy for everything he does.
He's just very candid all the time.
Steven and I grew up with the 90s X-Men.
Right.
Which was actually the rebooted X-Men franchise from, I believe, like the early 80s, or the late 80s or early 80s. I can't remember which one it is, because the original one had was it Australia? No, it was like a British, almost like a British or Cockneyed Wolverine.
Okay, I didn't
It
know.
had like Dazzler, Nightcrawler, like some of the OG X-Men. And the crazy part about it, that cartoon series started out with narrations from Stan Lee.
Oh, did
And
it?
he would start with, "Hey, true believers.
Oh, that's cool.
It's the world of the X-Men."
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. And do their
wow.
gifts make them different? Or do they make them dangerous? You
That's
know,
funny.
it was always a thing. And I was like, that's so freaking hilarious. Like, he took the time to narrate all these.
Apparently, he's in a cameo for like those really early 70s Marvel films. He's in like the Stanley cameo has been a thing since like the 70s. Like I think it was I forget what.
First of all, we all try to forget those early Marvel movies.
No, yeah, honestly, yeah,
like,
I get that.
Especially the Captain America one where he's like strapped to a rocket and launched into the Antarctic. That was dumb.
Okay,
that's about all I can say.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. It's like it's funny though, because like you look at those films, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know. Like in my head, I'm just like, how would you as a person rebrand those heroes to be modern? You know? And they fucking did it. Like, like superheroes are so cool right now. Everybody they're not for children, just for children, I should say. They're for everybody. Like that's what's ridiculous to me. Like, I don't understand how they did that.
Because here's the thing, right? The comic books that Stan Lee wrote. He was coming off of comic books that other people had written where the good guy is the good guy and always the good guy. And he and other people like Ditka and like I'm forgetting the other guy's name.
So you're talking about Steve Ditko and like Jack Kirby? Or
yeah,
what?
Yeah. So those guys,
the artists that helped him out and stuff like that.
Right, and he's touched on this before in places like Mallrats and stuff. He's like every superhero has a struggle to him. Like Hulk had a rage problem. You know, Captain America was out of like. It's not that his morality was in question, but he's just like out of time. You know, he's a fixture from another time. And Tony Stark his ambition gets in the way all the time. Like he wrote people that had superpowers,
right? Not
superheroes. You know what I mean? That's what made his comic books so much more
relatable. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Like he actually said that on that Conan episode, which was like. He was like, because DC Comics came before Marvel.
Right.
And he was talking about how, like, in the 1950s to the 1960s, that's what was selling. Yeah. It was like these perfect human beings that were just supernatural. Mm-hmm. And his like, take on it was, he was like, well, because apparently at one point in time, he wanted a career change. Okay. And his wife was telling him, like, well, why don't you just do that crazy idea you were going to do where you write comics that are about, like, fucking people with problems that happen to have, like, superpowers, not just, like write them like people. Don't write them like aliens or, like, you know. Yeah. No knock to Superman, but, like,
rich alien bastards who don't have problems.
Right? Yeah, because he was saying on Conan, sorry, to get back to that real fast.
No, go for it.
That Superman's kryptonite was written only because they couldn't find flaws in him.
Right.
Like, kryptonite was invented just because they were like, this guy has no conflict.
Right.
How would we ever, like, you know...
Yeah, that was, like, the one thing that could hurt him. And so it was always a question of how do we work kryptonite or some sort of thing into this comic book.
Right,
That's why, like... And I'm not trying to slam on DC on this thing, but that's why Marvel Comics were so, like, different. It's like Superman had all these powers, and the only problem was he couldn't really fit in on Earth and kryptonite. But like you take somebody like Spider-Man and everything's going wrong for Spider-Man.
I remember that actually when we were kids. I remember asking you like, why do you like Spider-Man so much? Because for those of you who don't know, Ernie was obsessed with Spider-Man when he was younger.
Oh yeah.
With good reason. Who doesn't like Spider-Man, right? And I remember asking you one time, like, why the fuck do you like Spider-Man so much?
Yeah, because he doesn't have that many impressive powers.
Yeah, because I was like, I like Mega Man and Venom. Why do you like Spider-Man? And I remember you telling me, like, because he always has problems. Like, he's late for stuff, and he's trying to juggle, like, a relationship with, like, his Spider-Man life, and like you know people die because of him. He has like real problems and
his conflict.
Yeah, and he's super relatable. And I just never like, as a kid, obviously, I just never thought of it like that way because I was like, swings from buildings, that's cool, I guess. You know, like whatever. But it was just really interesting that like you know like that's the kind of that's a level that Stan Lee reaches people on. You know, it's like this personal level where like they're, even though they're super powered people or whatever, it's like you can still relate to them in a way, which is kind of insane. Like
that's why it was always that's why his moniker always was like friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. It was like Spider-Man wasn't a person that was off saving the world. Spider-Man wasn't off like doing these grandiose things. He was in a neighborhood making a difference.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that was his shtick. That was his thing. He was trying to protect the little guy because he was the little guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's very relatable to any kid growing up, especially considering like Stan Lee. I'm not sure if it was Stan Lee, but they boiled Spider-Man down to like, with great power comes great responsibility. And just the overall like guilt that he feels for what happened to his Uncle Ben makes it so he's such a compelling character.
He has motive. Yeah, exactly. Like Superman is like, what? She landed here. That's it.
Well, I mean, hey, look, like Superman always has the problem of he's not really human.
Right.
So as much as there was not to bring a tangent too far to something else, but like there was a great part of this other comic where Superman is fighting Doomsday, and he's like, they even did this in the cartoon series. Where it was like, he's like, I live in a world of cardboard where if I let myself go at any given point, people get hurt. He's like, but you can take it, and then he starts beating the crap out of him. Yep. He's like, because he's like, we don't know what that feels like.
Right.
We don't know what it feels like to have the power of Superman. But they were trying to introduce. He's like, this is how much he struggles every day to not. He's like a giant in a tiny world. You know what I mean? Like there is a conflict there. It's not as relatable as something like for Marvel Comics.
Creative writers are creative writers. So like All-Star Superman, for example, was written by Grant Morrison.
That's a fantastic series.
And it is a good series, yeah. And it focuses on Superman has like cancer, basically, if I'm correct. I read it when like in high school, so forgive me if I'm wrong. But it gets like cancer, and it's him basically like dealing with that.
It's not cancer, but it's like he's dying because of the radiation that's emanating from his body.
Yeah. And
I believe eventually he has to leave the planet because he's either gonna explode or something's gonna happen that's gonna affect people here.
Yeah, and it's a very like somber take on Superman because you don't see him flying around as much. You don't see him fighting criminals. He's just kind of like, he's like, look, Lex, I'm gonna die. So this kind of like crazy like sexual energy we got, it's gotta go. Like I don't.
It's a great piece because it's like Superman writes his will essentially, and he does these my seven tasks I must do before I leave Earth.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of that's exactly what it
is. And it's really beautiful and poetic the way that he does what he does because he could only pull these things off if he was dying. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so these are like, that's a beautiful and a very like hard to replicate series with him, especially.
Yeah, and anyway, back to Stan Lee real fast. I just remembered this little story that was on his Wikipedia page. Having somewhat to do with what we were talking about, you know, personal, whatever. Him bringing real life problems basically into his characters. He wanted to write like this. Well, he did. He wrote like this 3 comic like little thing about Spider-Man's friend gets into drugs and look at the dangers of drugs and all this shit.
Right.
And I believe it was commissioned by like people from the city. They wanted like, hey, you know,
this is a real problem.
Yeah, like you have some influence in the youth. Obviously, so why don't you write something about drugs? And he did. And apparently, there's this thing called the Comics Code Authority, which they need to put their little stamp of approval on your comic.
Right.
To make sure that you're, like, kid-friendly, or that you live up to their codes or whatever, and you're not breaking their rules. They didn't want to put the stamp on it because they were like, there's drugs in it. And he's like, but it's showing you, like, the negative side effects of the drugs. and they're like, no, drugs bad, no stamp for you.
They had regulations that said like you can't have drinking, smoking, or drugs. Or
anything like that. Book. So he was like, well, fuck you, I'm gonna do it anyway.
Stan Lee doesn't seem like the kind of person who says that, but I think the sentiment is there. It
was more like, well, fuck you, Excelsior. No. So he was straight up was like, I want to publish this anyway, and like it went on to be a successful comic book, obviously, and that was like the shortened version. I assume it was like, retailers have some say in like what they put out in their stores, so they probably were like, I don't know about this comic that doesn't have a stamp of these people on it, whatever. But apparently it was like they got commended tremendously for like you guys did it without the stamp, and you guys really care about the community, and it's like, it's true. It's just that's what Stan Lee's all about. He just wanted the comic book out there, whether or not it was going to be popular. Like he wanted to help people. That's what he likes to do.
I mean, Stan Lee was a big. I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but comic books were very in a very dire place while he was working in them.
It was kind of like it was like stagnant, and that's why he
stagnant, and a lot of these places almost died. Like Marvel was very close to going away at several different points, and it's the stories and everything that they came up with. They made compromises, but like Stan Lee was there during all of it. It's crazy.
Yeah, there was. It's funny too because like in the Wikipedia page they were going through like his years like in the 90s to like 2011, and I was just like, yeesh, those were like some bad years for like, just because like he was doing his independent work. So they mentioned like he did Stripperella for Spike TV, and I was just like, why did you do that? Like that was just a weird like.
You want to hear something weird? There's a big following for Stripperella.
Really?
Yeah.
How is that
because
possible?
It's a thing. It's like pulp. It's like it's like pulp. People like that stuff. It's like all the crap they have on MTV, like the Max, big the Head, Beavis and Butthead. You're like, why would you go? Like, why would you want to see that? And it's like they have a cult following.
That's
for those
so
kind of things.
Weird. That is so weird. Well, whatever. Anyway, Stan Lee's a great man. I'm very sorry that he's gone. Like honestly, like I said, like. Celebrity deaths don't really affect me, I'm there making jokes, the same minute that they're announced. But it's like this one was very like, fuck. Like,
this one felt on par as to when like I heard Robin Williams died.
Yeah, Robin Williams was like, when people die of natural causes, I'm there to make jokes, whatever, right? Celebrity deaths specifically, sorry.
Right.
But like when celebrities commit suicide, I'm like, oh, that's not funny. Like why? Like why did I just like the Robin?
No, it's true. It's
Robin
true, man.
Williams like still tears me up. I'm like, why did you do that? Like so many people liked you. He was like he had movies planned too.
Yeah,
it
was all of a sudden everybody was shocked. Same thing with like I believe it was last year. I think it's a little over a year, but like when Chris Cornell and then Chester Bennington both committed suicide.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
And it was crazy too because in my household we grew up on Linkin Park. And so that hit us pretty hard, and I knew a lot of friends who were just like Chris Cornell, man. He was his voice is insane. Like I've heard there's this really nice piece that they started playing on the radio where it was Black Hole Sun, that one, but they strip away all the music. And they just have Chris Cornell do the intro without the music. Okay. It's like it's one of those voices where you hear it and you know it's instantly him. Okay. But it's also like just it's so unique and awesome at the same time.
No, yeah.
It's those kind of people that affect me the most. It was like one of those I knew it was gonna be like Stan Lee is like we now live in a post Stan Lee world. Yeah. And I don't know how I feel about it, to be honest, because it's like the next wave of Marvel movies is gonna start. Like they're gonna start doing the Disney Plus, which is the new streaming service, and all that stuff is gonna take place without Stan Lee.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, like, I have no idea how much, because, like, he's executive producer on, like, everything. Yeah. I have no idea how much input he had or what he brought to the table as far as, like directing or creative whatever. But it's definitely going to be different. I was wondering, too, I wonder if they'll try to immortalize him in, like, a different way. Like, like in Defenders, he was, like, on a poster. In Deadpool 2, he was, like, on some graffiti or something. Right. So I wonder if they'll just continue it like that way.
Yeah, I mean they could. I mean for sure he's already been in a lot of other stuff where you're just like, oh, technically could keep going because, like, I don't know if you remember, but he has a cameo in Big Hero 6.
Yeah, he's Fred's dad, right?
They voiced the character and everything.
Yeah, so they got the 3D model. You can just stand there, and there you go.
Stand there? That's
yeah,
funny.
there you go. But yeah, so Stanley, rest in peace. We love you. We miss you. You were the best. Speaking of Brian Reynolds, because I brought up Deadpool.
Yeah.
Look at that beautiful segue.
That was an awkward segue.
Everyone's been talking about this. The whole internet's on fire talking about this one. Detective Pikachu finally got a trailer.
It did.
People were hearing about it. It's one of those things that you don't believe, right? You're just like, they're making a live action Pikachu movie, and it's been like 2 years since they mentioned it.
Yeah.
What's going on?
I think one of the first pieces of news about Detective Pikachu was Ryan Reynolds was attached to play Pikachu.
Yeah, because it's apparently big in Japan.
Something like huge in Japan. Are you kidding me?
Not just Pokemon, like Detective Pikachu.
Detective Pikachu is
what
I'm
like,
talking about.
Did really well in Japan. Yeah. Like, I don't know what it's like.
Not the movie, the game.
The game, yeah. Or like, yeah, whatever. That like they translated it to America because it did so well.
Yeah.
Nobody played the fucking game. I don't think anybody.
I personally did not.
Right. Anyway, so this trailer comes out. If you haven't seen it, you should. If you like Pokemon, sure, go watch it. You guys already know how I feel about Pokemon, and so you will probably guess what my feelings are on this trailer, which is.
So I'm gonna segue out of this really quick because I want to just tell you. So we were gonna set up the podcast and everything, and I was like, "Have you seen Detective Pikachu?" And he's like, "No." I was like, "Do you want to watch?" He's like, "Throw it on." And I stayed silent throughout the whole thing without saying a single goddamn word.
Right.
And as soon as it ended, I pause it and I look over at Steven's like, "Looks like horse shit."
Yeah. Yeah. That's just my hot take, as they say.
Hot take.
Yeah, because like it looks like Ted. It has like Ted vibes. I did not like.
Really?
I did not like Ted at all.
Doesn't have that crassness to it. What are you talking about?
It has a little bit of it.
When?
Mr. Mime tells him to shove it.
To shove it.
Yeah.
He says shove it.
Dude,
that was your...
For Pokemon, that's pretty gritty, dude. Like...
That's gritty.
Jigglypuff is in like some fucking diner, like...
Hey, singing karaoke.
Yeah. Well, anyway. Ryan Reynolds' voice is a no from me. Like... That is just like, why did you pick this person to do the voice? Like, in my head, I guess it's just like, people love Pokemon, people love Deadpool, people love Ryan Reynolds. Right. Let's do it. Like, just throw them all into a fucking pot.
Blender.
Yeah, just let's see what comes out. I think it looks like I suppose that's why I brought up Ted. It's the contrast of the voice, you know, like Seth MacFarlane's voice coming out of like a cute little teddy bear.
Yeah.
I guess that's the vibe I get from it. But I think all the Pokemon look really bad. Like, they look like those like fan creations that like people do where they're just like, oh, what if Pokemon was real? And all this shit. And I'm like apparently the only person in the world that's sitting here going, hey, maybe cartoons are fake and they don't need to be real. Like, but that's just me, I guess. I'm just like this crazy idiot who's just like, cartoons are cartoons, and they're like lively and colorful and goofy and stretchy because they're cartoons and they're not forced into real life, you know. But whatever, that's just me. What do you think, Ernie? What do you think about this trailer?
Well, first off, hearing Ryan Reynolds' voice come out of there is a little jarring. I'm not gonna lie. That was a little off-putting because he kind of just he didn't try and kind of do a voice.
Yeah, he doesn't.
So he's literally just Deadpool's voice or Ryan Reynolds' voice or whoever you want to call him.
Green Lantern. Yeah.
Green Lantern. He's Van Wilder. Right, gotcha.
There you go. Yeah.
But I have to say, the world that they created, I kind of dug it.
Yeah,
like, I liked it because, for one thing, like, it's very much in the same vein as, like, and I'm going to upset you here by comparing the two, but like Roger Rabbit, I like seeing...
Oh, go to hell.
I like seeing humans interact with, like, crazy... Like, an alternate world. You know what I mean? Like, the beginning opening scene reminded of Zootopia, where, like, Judy steps out and sees, like, what a world would be like.
Yeah, it actually looks like...
With, animals as opposed to just humans. So when I saw this kid step out and there was like people walking their Pokemon with them on a leash, and there were certain Pokemon who were like, oh, we use them and fight in this arena. Like, it felt, the world didn't seem empty. You know what I mean? Like, it felt lived in. And the kid, like, the trailer starts off with this kid who is, like, his father's gone, so he came to pick up his stuff and blah, blah, blah. But he's not trying to be a cop or a detective like his father. He works some menial job. Yeah, he's working some menial job.
I didn't know that. Okay.
He's working some menial job because he wanted to be a Pokemon trainer at one point, and it didn't work out for him. And like all over his, it's crazy because all over his room you see posters for all these big fights, and I believe I saw like if any of you, all of you probably, played the original Red and Blue versions, those two Pokemon that fight in the beginning. I believe he had something like that in his room.
Oh.
And it didn't work out for him, so then he meets Pikachu, right? Mm-hmm. But it all felt really real. Like, the posters felt real.
Yeah, I understand that.
Like, the struggles, like, the whole, like, the struggle for him to, like, become a Pokemon trainer felt real.
Okay.
Because he was like...
This is a trailer, by the way.
yeah, no, I know, but I liked what they were saying, because he was like, I heard you were trying to be a Pokemon, and, like, before he can actually finish, he goes, like, yeah, it didn't work out. Like, he's pissed, Mm-hmm. But I want to see it.
Okay.
I want to see it. Like, mostly, I will say that the fact that Ryan Reynolds is a part of it, I'm really digging him right now. So, yeah, that's one reason that I want to go see it.
You love him. I
love him.
I know you do. Him. That's okay.
And but here's the one thing I will say. The Pikachu fluffiness, I'm not necessarily on board with. Because I get what you're saying about the Pokemon. When you attach actual textures to them, they have kind of this weird vibe. And I always thought of Pikachu's fur as more like, you know how you see, like my dog, like Lenny, he has kind of a fluffiness to him. His hair sticks out, right?
Right.
But take a beagle, and like their hair is like really short and
short hair, yeah.
Short hair, right? That's what I thought Pikachu's hair would look like.
Okay.
But in this one, it looks like they put him in a dryer, and he kind of like. He's fluffy. Like if you grab him, he's gonna feel like a teddy bear.
That's what sucks about like real life iterations of cartoons is that people they're just like, okay, well that's fact now. Like this is what Pikachu looks like. Like fuck all your iterations. This is canon now. Like Pikachu is a fluffy ball of fluff now.
That doesn't make any sense to me though, because Pikachu, like in his description, is a rodent. Rodents have short hair. They're not fluffy. You know what I mean? Like. Even hamsters. Some of them hamsters are like they have like their fur is all like matted down. They're short hair. You know what I mean? Like that would make sense to me.
Why doesn't he look like Ratatouille? That's what I want to know, huh?
I don't know, Steven. Why doesn't he look like Ratatouille?
But no, a lot of people had the same opinion as you, which is what they were like. They were like, "Oh, it looks good, and I want to see it, and I love Pokemon, and I jack off to Pokemon," and I get that.
I didn't say any of that.
I completely get that. All right. I at this point in my life am just immune to Pokemon.
Right.
Okay. Pokemon is just whatever. Like, it's very like.
Oh, you're not gonna get the new Pokemons with Eevee and Pikachu?
Those are actually just remakes of Yellow, apparently.
I know they are.
Which is like. Whatever, like. Everything Pokemon just fucking sells like hotcakes. So like, just people
keep selling them.
Yeah, people like. I feel like that's like their mentality is like...
If any of you ever think that, oh man, PlayStation and Xbox, they're just killing Nintendo, just take a look at Pokemon, alright? Just take a look at Pokemon and see how many different things they're selling at one given point. Just do it.
It's ridiculous. Whatever. Anyway, they showed a couple different Pokemon off in the movie. I was really surprised at how many of them were just fluffy. Like Jigglypuff is just fluffy.
Right, he's another one that I thought that's weird.
I guess
picture him as fluffy.
I mean Jigglypuff, right? I guess it's puffy.
Yeah, but considering the fact that he blows himself up, like when I say blow himself up, like he like expands his body. I thought he would be a little more rubbery. You know what I mean? Like he would have more of a like almost like a blowfish kind of skin.
Yeah.
So he could like puff himself up.
That's true. Yeah, I don't know, cause like Charizard obviously looked like a lizard.
Of course, right? And he had scales. And that looked right to me.
Yeah, and which I don't know. Like, me in my head, I'm just like, oh, so it's a lizard, so it has to have scales. It's like, this world is fake. You do whatever you want. Like, why do you...
isn't he a dragon type?
Yeah, but, like, I don't know. Like, why
if he was
why does it have to traditionally look like such a fucking lizard? Like...
Well, no, dragons have scales. That at least... Listen, besides what it actually looks like, at least there's some logic there. You know what I mean? Like, a dragon has scales.
Uh-huh. They don't have to be so small, or like you could change. Like, what I'm saying, okay, whatever.
The Charizard look huge. What are you talking about?
No. I'm talking about the scales and on his body.
Oh,
like,
okay.
you know, like, I don't know. It's just whatever. Anyway, sorry, that was a tangent. They showed like Bulbasaur, which, like, to me, just a lot of the CG looks like unfinished. Like CG, like Bulbasaur almost looked like, I don't know, like I couldn't even tell what he was made out of. Like, it just looked like there wasn't...
Well, he was kind of in the darkness because they were marching through, like, a forest.
He was right in front of the camera.
Huh?
He was right in front of the camera. He was, like, walking through, like a shallow pond.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it's just, like, the sharpness of it, or, like, the lighting of some of these characters. Like, it looks really... I don't know. Pikachu himself, honestly, was, like, fucking scary looking to me. Like,
Really? I've watched it now, like, 3 times.
Uh-huh.
I've kind of gotten used to it, to be honest.
The cheeks look dumb to me. The red spots on the cheek, I'm like, things don't look like that. Like, what do you, like, I don't get it. Like, whatever. Okay. Anyway, are you done talking about Detective Pikachu?
I'm done talking about Detective Pikachu.
Okay. Another trailer came out. Not a trailer, actually. A teaser.
Right.
The same day, competing with the trailer for Detective Pikachu.
Well, it's a teaser trailer.
Yeah. Toy Story 4. Okay.
4.
Andy's Revenge.
It's not what the subtitle is.
It's not? Okay.
There's no subtitle. It's just Toy Story 4.
Toy Story 4.
Sale.
Right? They had like this teaser trailer of them like jumping around.
Well, essentially, they're all holding hands and like doing like a circle run.
Yeah, and you get to see all the characters. And then like this weird like spork thing. He was like, I shouldn't be here. And he like jumps out and it messes all of them up and it's super funny.
It says next summer.
Yeah. So, I want to get your thoughts, Ernie. What do you think about that?
Well, I think this is... Okay, so Toy Story 1, you talked about what happens when a new toy is introduced.
Okay.
You know?
Sure.
Toy Story 2 is like what happens to old toys when they get abandoned.
True.
Toy Story 3 is about like it's supposed to be like a finite thing and be like, listen, it's okay to die.
Really? Wow. Okay.
It's okay for toys to die.
Okay.
It's like this is what we were made for. We're made to be played with, blah blah blah. And I feel like Toy Story 4 is gonna talk about what and when toys come to life. Because in the trailer, hold on, let me get this.
Yeah, sure.
In the trailer, this spork is obviously put together. Mm-hmm. And comes to life.
That's true.
Because it stands as an inanimate object. It has feet glued to him. It has some pipe cleaner arms, and then somebody drew a face on this thing, and all of a sudden it's like he's like, I shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
It's like, what are we gonna discover? Like when a toy is born?
That's true. I didn't even think about that. Like,
this trailer has me asking so many philosophical questions.
Okay.
Like at work, I was asking, this is Toy Story's inception. Like, what is it that makes a toy come to life? Is it a child's love for a toy? Is it what? Because I was like, because think about it, in the original movie, Andy's Buzz Lightyear doesn't come to life until after he leaves and he's like opened it and played with it and all that kind of stuff. And then Tim Allen wakes up and starts walking around and blah, blah, blah. Then a friend of mine was like, what about all the toys in Al's Toy Barn?
Only one of them woke up, right?
In Al's Toy Barn?
Only two.
No, the Barbie stuff drives him around and all that stuff.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
It's like, but I think what I started discussing all these things and it was really funny because I started saying like, what if a toy's life is given to them by the first child that plays with them, and then it dies when that child dies, as in like an old man or something.
Okay.
And I was like, is getting too crazy, and she's like, "Stop talking about this because you're making me think too much." But it has me kind of excited. Like, what are they going to try to do with this made toy?
Okay. Because a lot of people had the opposite sentiment, which was like, why is this movie necessary? Mm-hmm. The trilogy ended.
Right.
Like, why do you have a fourth part? I saw Toy Story 1 when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. I really liked it.
Right.
We had a collector's edition that had like a behind the scenes thing.
Right.
Where they told me that animation is a lot of work and you're never going to do it. And I said, okay, I understand.
That's not what it said, but okay.
And then part 2 came out, and I was like, it's a good movie. Part 3 came out, and I was like, I don't really care anymore. Honestly,
Part 3 was something you should have watched.
Part 3 was one of those movies where people were just like, oh, I can die now. I saw Toy Story 3. I feel so good about myself or something.
Did you watch Toy Story 3?
No, that's my point.
That's like, the thing. It's like when they say I'm okay with death now because I've watched Toy Story 3, it's about acceptance in the movie. It's not like, now that I watched it, I can die. Well, like, it's about what the movie is trying to deliver to you.
I get it. I know, like, there's a scene where, like, they're in the furnace and they're, like, holding each other and they're going to die. I get it. But, like, I don't know.
It's not just boiled down to that. It's more...
No. I get it. It's just... I think it's about, like... Toy Story to me is, like... And I know this sounds so stupid. Mm-hmm. Toy Story is, like, a little too kiddie for me. Like... I guess it's, like, some of the humor... And, like, even, like, the characters... And, like, even, like... I don't know. I guess like the subject matter is a little too spot on for me. Like, it's like literally kids, you know, being taught a lesson or something. Like
sure.
I don't know. Like some. I'm gonna talk about my favorite fucking movie ever because it's an underrated gem, which is Ratatouille.
Okay.
Ratatouille is so underrated, and like I love that movie so much. And its message is like a lot more subtle, and it's like the surface level is not like hey, kids playing with toys. It's like a little rat with a dream, you know? Like, he wants to be a cook.
Sure.
All this.
He's a rat.
Like, I don't know. Something about, like, Toy Story is just maybe it's a little too... the humor. Like, maybe it's the humor is, like, the biggest part of it. It just doesn't really get to me. I don't know.
Well, I mean, the subject matter is probably what draws you away from it because, like, the subject matter on a deeper level is, like, when things change for you and how you adapt to them is what the first one's about. The second one is about trying to find purpose to yourself. You know, because, you know, it's the reason why Woody's like, oh my gosh, there's all these people who want me. Is like, but, you know, it's Andy who really wants you and all that kind of stuff. And it deals a lot with abandonment because of, like, Jesse's perspective in that movie. Sure. It's like a lot of heavy stuff, man. Like that scene in Toy Story 2 where Jessie gets abandoned by the side of the road in a box. And I don't even remember if there was a donation box or something like that she's in, or they just dumped her on the side of the road or whatever. But like that's one of the saddest things I've ever seen.
That's not sad to me.
That's not sad when Jessie gets abandoned?
No, not even when I was a kid. This, I'm telling you, I don't know what it is about this movie. But those series of movies, I just feel like disconnected. Like there's just nothing like tying me into it. I don't know what it is. I don't know. Honestly, like The Incredibles 1, I'm there. I'm fucking crying. Like I love that movie. Even Inside Out, when I saw Inside Out in theaters, I was like, oh shit, like this movie is like
I love watching that movie.
This movie is so great, but like I don't know, Toy Story is just like, yeah, I get it.
I think it's because it might be because it's like the oldest one to you. So it feels like the one that's as surface level as it can possibly be. The other ones have like the inception of Toy Story is like, what if toys came to life? You know? But the other ones are like, what if a gross rat wanted to cook? You know what I mean? Like,
no, you're going
what
like,
if feelings had feelings?
No, you're
just like, you're getting super like crazy.
Yeah, that's what Pixar does. You're like, I think you're talking more about like DreamWorks, where it's like, what if a snail was fast? You're like,
no. But like, that's kind of it. That's kind of how these things are written. Is like, what if something had something like, what if there were no people? It was just cars. Mm-hmm.
Right. You know? Cars is another one that I'm just like Cars 3 surprised me because I actually liked Cars 3.
I loved Cars 3. That was a great movie. Yeah,
Cars 3 was really good. Cars 1 was just like, yeah, I don't know. You know what it might be, honestly? Uh-huh. And I'm sorry if this insults people, okay? the character designs. I don't really dig the character designs as much in Toy Story.
You know why?
Why?
I'll tell you why. Because those character designs were built out of a necessity and not from a drawing into something else. Because I remember that DVD thing that you were talking about.
It was a tape. But
the
yeah.
tape, whatever. Yeah. Then we got a DVD, remember, that had like the making of Toy Story, and it had like Buzz and Woody and like grids or whatever, and how they built them the first time. Just
so you can remember correctly, it was like a giant box. Remember?
I remember.
And it had a silver VHS tape.
Yes, I remember.
But it wasn't a DVD; it was a VHS.
No,
tape.
I know, but we got the DVD later, and this is where a lot of the stuff was.
I remember,
also.
But I remember I was mad. Because that actually wasn't the movie.
No.
This was like its own thing.
It was its own thing.
And whenever I was looking for the Toy Story movie, I would come across this fucking behind the scenes thing. And I would be like, this isn't the movie. This is like, right, whatever, yeah. Anyway.
So like, some of the inception of like a 3D movie was like, listen, we have the software to make a 3D movie. Mm-hmm. But everything on it, we can't get it to look very like realistic.
Everything looks like plastic.
Everything looks like plastic, and he's like, "So what can we do?" He's like, "Well, we can make a movie about toys that are already plastic, and they're simple shapes, so we don't have to be as like crazy realistic with these." And that's where the inception of Pixar started. So it didn't start like a traditional Pixar film where it's like, "This is a story here. Now let's try to do something with it." It was more like, look at this technology we have. We should do something with it. Okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean,
it started differently than I think all the other ones.
I see what you mean. When I went to the Science Museum.
Oh yeah, you went to the Pixar exhibit.
They had like a Pixar exhibit thing, and they were talking about how like with Toy Story it was like, you know, plastic things. That's all we could get.
Right.
Humans look like shit, but the toys look good, right? Yeah. And then they talked about how like when they went to their other movies, they kept trying different things. Like with Monsters Inc., it was like fur. Right. They finally got like fur to look really good, so they decided to make Sully like this big furry thing, right? And then when Cars came out, they were like, we really wanted to try something with reflective glass and reflective metals and stuff like that. And then up to like Inside Out, where Inside Out was like, if you look at that movie like on a Blu-ray, there's like all these crazy little particle effects like floating off of the characters at all times. So,
not to mention they all have their own textures. Like everybody has their own variants of a texture. Like the main, the lady that's played by Amy Poehler, Joy.
Yeah,
she has like a furriness to her. That's more like, you know, when you play too much with like a stuffed animal, you get that like kneaded kind of like an old blanket almost. Okay. That's her texture. Okay. So it's like these kind of things with particle effects and the glow that she has, all these different like lighting glows that they had to deal with. All these things is what like I feel that they experimented with on there.
Yeah, and there were actually there was this cool thing where it was actually seen from Ratatouille where they were just like, if you press one of the buttons, it'll turn off one of the light sources. Or I should say like a bunch, because apparently like Ratatouille specifically, I don't know about other ones. I'm sure it's a lot of Pixar movies. They have like 500 light sources, and that's what gives them like that depth, and that's what makes things not look like it's just a fucking 3D models walking around like a flat space. It's like all these different light sources, because in real life there's obviously like more than just one light source and stuff like that. You could like, there was a way for you to like, you push this button and it turns off the backlight, or you turn off this button and it's like, wow, it really makes a fucking difference. Like,
it's the difference between a sitcom being lit on a stage,
exactly.
and a film.
Yeah, exactly. It's like film lighting as opposed to like what you just said. Yeah, it's like sitcom lighting where it's like all in the front, so everything is like completely like no shadows basically. Right. Yeah. So yeah, it was really interesting just looking at that. I know this is a completely off topic. I just recently saw Monsters Inc. again.
Part 1 or 2?
Part 1. And I fucking love that movie. I love that movie. That is a good movie.
I don't know why they made a part 2 to that movie.
Yeah,
I understand it's a prequel, and I understand the...
I didn't really like it as much.
I understand the message that they give. I still enjoy watching it because it's still funny and it still has a message that I really like, but they didn't really need another Monsters Inc. That movie is like, it's wrapped up so well. You know what I mean? Like, they go from scaring kids to making them joyful.
Yeah.
And it goes from one person feeling underappreciated and working super hard, but never actually getting to be the star, to flipping it around and having the guy who used to be the star be like, let's go, buddy. And now they flipped.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Holding up others. Yeah. You know, it's cool too because that movie specifically was like one of those like oh man, like what a great way, like what a great spin on like monsters in the closet. Like what a super like charming and like cute little story that you guys can tell off of just like, you know, like, oh, what if the monsters in the closet had like this whole corporation behind them and all this stuff. It's like,
what if monsters did that for a living?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just such an imaginative like thing that you only get like out of Pixar. But what I was gonna say real fast was to tie it back to Toy Story. The comedy in Monsters Inc. is really good.
It's really great.
Like Mike Wazowski, like Billy Crystal playing Mike Wazowski is so fucking good. His animations are so cool. Like if anybody watched that movie recently, like just take note of like all of Mike Wazowski's like sarcastic like motions, like hand gestures and just the way he talks, and like it's so good. Like
if you've ever seen anything that Billy Crystal's been in, like what's that really famous one?
Analyze This.
Analyze This. It feels just like him.
Well, that's what's great about it is like I watched it as a kid and I like it. You know, same reason I like Toy Story. It's like colorful characters. And now I'm watching it as an adult, and I'm like, it's still fucking funny, because it's like it has something for everyone. It has all of these layers that you can look at, you know, like different angles.
Actually, there's this really funny joke that I never got until after I've watched for like the 10th millionth time. Mike is running around trying to find, I believe he's trying to find Boo or whatever, and so he's going down through hallways, and at one point, the camera is essentially on the floor, and Mike is running at it. Yeah. And then he jumps over the camera, and in the next scene, he lands, like, out of this hallway and keeps running. So it's like, so he jumped over the camera? Is that what I'm understanding? And it's a joke as in, like, there was a camera there, but not really.
Oh, is that true?
It's like it's like a fake camera joke.
Okay, I didn't.
You know what I mean?
That. Sure, yeah.
Otherwise, he would just like. To do that takes more time than if he had just run around the corner. Right. You know what I mean? So somebody was like, wouldn't it be funny if he jumped over a camera that wasn't there?
Maybe somebody was there. I don't know. That's funny.
No, but he literally like runs towards the camera, jumps, and in the next scene he
exactly what
falling out of the other side. And I was like, oh, that's funny.
You know what, too? And that I feel like that was one of the first Pixar movies to do that whole like, oh, like who you think the bad guy is. This is really the bad guy, which is like, okay, I'm kind of tired of it at this point. Right. But at that time, it was groundbreaking. Like people were just like, oh shit, like what is this? Like
because they do, you know what they do a great job in Pixar? They do a great job of making somebody look a certain way. That's like halfway between menacing. And normal.
Yeah, like...
And the only thing they ever change is the expression on his face. Like... because, like, to take another one where, you know, we're tired of seeing this is, like, in Frozen. And spoiler if you haven't seen Frozen. The prince that comes to take, Anna's hand in marriage. Yeah. He's evil. And he just, like, all that happens is at the end he goes, like, he starts scowling and starts being like, if only somebody loved you. They're like, oh, shit. But he looked... like a prince, like any other prince, right?
Yeah, like you're saying, like they choose like very neutral looking people to be like, yeah, because like especially Waternoose in Monsters Inc. Right. He's a boss. He's a boss.
Yeah, but he looks like any other monster in that world.
Right, but my point is that like a boss is like somebody who can be like very mean sometimes, or you could be very good, and so it's like it's almost hard to gauge whether or not like is this person a villain or is he just being an asshole because he's got to dictate things around here, you know? Like who knows. But yeah, my favorite scene by far is like that when they're on the doors and they're like they go into like the back room where all of the doors are at. Yeah, that scene is so awesome because they're going through like different worlds basically, like opening doors and all that, and they have to get Boo to laugh so that she can activate the doors. And great movie, fucking great movie.
I love it because, and to tie it back to Toy Story, Randall, right? Yeah, Randall Randall ends up in a trailer.
Yeah.
And outside the trailer is the Pizza Planet truck.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. that truck seems to be in every fucking movie.
It's in Cars.
It's in Cars, and it's also in Coco.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. You pointed it out to me.
There's like there's a Wood and Buzz Wood.
Woody. We're not cutting that out.
Woody, yeah. Woody and Buzz Lightyear, they're like pinatas.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. Anyway.
Also, did it shows up obviously in Toy Story a lot, but I want to say it's shown up almost anywhere. Because there's been several times where they go to certain places and then there's a yellow, like a little yellow truck.
There's
one where it's a toy.
Okay.
I want to say that was in Brave.
Okay.
There's a little yellow truck that the witch is making.
Okay. Somehow they snuck it into that.
Yeah, somehow, right?
That's ridiculous. Yeah. She at the end of the movie, Boo gives Sully the ball from Pixar,
right.
the Pixar ball,
and I believe gives him a clownfish. Which looks surprisingly like Finding Nemo.
Yeah. There's a bunch of Easter eggs in that fucking scene. Yeah, I don't remember them all, but I'm sure you guys could find some clickbaity video that'll show you them all.
True. There's plenty of these on YouTube.
But yeah. So, final thoughts, Ernie. What are your final thoughts here?
Final thoughts is rest in peace, Stanley. The world is worse without you, but hopefully all your work will live on.
Yeah. Yeah, same. We actually just saw Iron Man 3 recently. Both of us, yeah. And we were just like, these movies are fucking great, dude. Like,
what was his cameo in that one?
I don't know.
I know he had a cameo there.
I don't know actually.
I know he had a cameo. I think I just missed it though.
But I just forgot how much I enjoy Tony Stark being Iron Man.
Yeah.
You know? I was like, this dude can actually carry a whole movie, cause it was like a marathon on Veterans Day or something, and it was they showed the first one before that, and I was just like, fuck, this movie's good. It's just really good. But yeah, and then check out Detective Pikachu if you haven't seen it. Let me know what you guys think.
Sound if you're listening to this on YouTube, sound off in the comments below, or if you want to hit us up on Twitter, just make sure you. Hit us up and tell us what you think about Detective Pikachu or Toy Story 4. Maybe I'm way off base with the whole spoon thing.
Who knows?
But let me hear your thoughts.
No, I think you got something there. That sounds real.
You think?
Yeah. But yeah, we have a SoundCloud, and like Ernie said, we are on iTunes. Radio Toons podcast on both of them. Mm-hmm. Our Twitters. I'm Soho Shuffle on Twitter,
and I'm at Neo Ernie.
Right. So if you want to hit us up on there, tell us about the podcast that you listen to it, so we can say good job. Thank you, thank you for listening. We appreciate that
very much so.
But yeah, that does it for this week, guys. See you next week.
See you next week, guys.